Welcome to Virtual Coffee with Dawn Rickabaugh, the Note Queen, where we talk about owner financing and notes. Financial solutions, one mom and pop to another.
Because Ed is helping me. Now, when you go into the note business, sometimes things don't go as planned, right, Ed?
That's right.
Okay, and so, Ed, you've been doing private lending for a while over in the Baltimore, Maryland area, and then because of some deals that went bad, then you had to take a couple properties back and get them sold or dealt with on some level, right?
Yep. I became a rehabber.
You became a rehabber because you had to take back the property. So you just have to know that when you're not at a Disneyland ride. I mean, even if you do everything right by the book and by the guidelines, life happens, right? So anyway, I had one of these, and it so happens that I had made a loan to a guy, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And so I'm just at the point where next week is the trustee sales, and I'll get the property back. And because I'm on the West Coast and the property's on the East Coast, it's really wonderful to have financial friends and people that can help be your boots on the ground, right? So Ed has been on my calls a couple of times, enjoyed his contributions, and I just kept his phone number. So I just called you out of the blue, yesterday or the day before, and said, "Hi, Ed.
Yep.
By chance, can you drive by that property for me? Because I need to figure out what my opening bid's going to be. I really do not want this property back. I mean, even if I have to leave money on the table, I don't want to rehab over there." So what did you find out? Were you able to go by this morning?
Yes, I drove by this morning, and I also, as we discussed the comps that my realtor friend provided, I studied them last night and picked a half a dozen comps, and I drove by them too.
Oh, thank you. Wow, you really went above and beyond. I really appreciate that.
Well, you provide a wonderful service with the virtual coffee that you do, and I think it's good if we can participate and help out too.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's. This is. I don't think you're going to be happy with what I have to say, but
okay.
Your property is near a lot of boarded up properties.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And some are pretty close, like in the back of your property, and within a mile south, it's a commercial area, kind of known as a high crime area, and there's a lot of boarded up properties and rundown properties. But Baltimore is kind of a block by block city, and it really trips up a lot of out of town investors. So you're in kind of a mid-level neighborhood there.
Gotcha.
Now the top of the market is a 298,500. Top of the line, staged, rehabbed, finished basement, central AC, balcony and deck, 80 days on the market, and 6 beds, 4 baths. And that's the absolute top of the market in that area. It's the best house on that block.
Gotcha.
One of the best.
Gotcha.
So your hope to get 300,000, I think, is a big reach.
Oh yeah, and let me just back up. And this is one of the pitfalls of, there's many benefits for doing note deals all over the country, but you are relying on BPOs or appraisals from people, and sometimes they're not accurate. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying that even if you do your due diligence and you get your BPOs and your appraisals, there's more. I would say there's a dozen times where I go, where did you get by the time you get it back, it's worth a lot less. Either they were misrepresented, they didn't know what they were doing, or, they were influenced at some point. So go ahead.
Okay. The next nice property listed for 165, sold for 150,000. It's a much smaller property, a little over 1,000 square feet, 3-bed, 2-bath. And that's a beautiful rehab based on the listing. It was staged, central AC, unfinished basement, and on-street parking in a tight parking area.
Gotcha.
So that's a smaller property than yours because you've got two. I'm sorry for the pause here. You've got 2,100 square feet above basement level. So
Okay.
this is a much smaller property, but it was beautiful. You know,
Right.
the listing was great, and
Right.
it's in a nicer neighborhood,
Gotcha.
more uniform neighborhood than yours. Now we had a very peculiar situation in that you have an incomplete rehab, and there were two incomplete rehabs in the comp group.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So one of them has 1,700 square feet, 3 bed, 3 baths, three and a
Uh-huh.
half baths. That sold for 130,000 in July 19th.
Okay. That's
It's
very
on
recent.
33 days on the market, street parking, central AC, and it's overgrown, as your yard is overgrown also. So that 130 is a possibility for you as a auction price. Okay.
Okay. Wow, that's actually,
Um,
well, that's really happy. I'm very happy to hear.
yeah.
That's better than I expected, actually.
Well,
So,
I'm working my way down the list.
okay,
Sorry.
so I'll be patient. I'll be patient. But everyone just gets to see this real life thing. This is not staged. This is me going, once in a while you get a crapper in your portfolio, right? So
Right.
here we go.
Okay. So the next one is another incomplete rehab, central
Okay.
air, street parking, 129 days on the market, 24 days on the multiple list,
Uh-huh.
unfinished basement, and one side, it's on a corner. One of the sides is a pretty busy street. That is under contract with a list of 90. And it's almost
90,000?
as large as yours. It's almost just under 2,000 square feet above ground, above the basement. That's a
Okay.
6 bedroom, 3 bath house.
Okay.
Okay. Then we've got a sold in May property, which is 1 block north of you.
Uh-huh.
Same street. It was vacant at the time, not rehabbed, no AC, 1 day on the market with dual agency. So that was a pocket listing.
Right.
And that is 8 bedrooms, 3 baths, sold in May for 120,000. And it's larger than yours by about 300 square
Gotcha.
feet. And I did see someone sitting on the porch this morning, so it doesn't look like that's being rehabbed.
The one that you mean that one? The one that sold for 120 in May?
Yeah, it sold for 120, 1.5 blocks north of you. And from May till now, I mean, if they did a complete rehab locally and resold it, that would be too fast.
Right.
So I think whoever bought that is living there. That's my guess.
Gotcha.
Then my last one is the most discouraging, and that is a property that was originally listed for 100,000. It's boarded up. It was on the market for 88 days, and has radiator heat, no AC, parking, street parking, boarded up, and the 4 bedroom, 1 bath, about the living space of yours. And they gradually lowered their price until they sold it at $30,000.
30,000.
Yeah.
Well, that is such a diverse. I mean, from 30,000 to 298 is the other comp with
all within a very. I mean, if you felt like spending the day, you could walk between all of them.
That is just crazy. Now, so Ed, if you were me, what would you do?
Well, give me a moment, okay? So I also looked at your property, and I couldn't really compare because I don't know that much about it. But just looking at the size of it, I'm guessing it's a 5 bedroom. It might be 4 or it might be 6.
Right.
You've got 2,100 square feet above ground. I looked in the front windows. It is definitely an incomplete rehab. There's sacks of something, maybe drywall mud or something, and demos junk all over the front window. The back door had been locked up, so I couldn't peek in there, and there were no other windows that were at ground level. So to answer your question, I had to take a property to foreclosure, and what the lawyer explained to me and what we did is you guess at what the market value is.
Right.
Okay. And then you open the bid at about half of that, because if that's what it sells for, and you end up taking it back at that half, the judge has to approve that the auction price was reasonable. And half of market value is considered reasonable in the legal system.
Okay.
Okay? So you might want...
Yeah, so I just want to compare notes right as you're bringing that up, because when I had a little chat with the guy who's running the law firm that's handling this foreclosure, and he said, and this was just, and I want to come back to see if this matches what you said or you heard anything else. He said, look, the assessed value of your property. So in the assessor's tax roll, it says 148.9, and he said the people at the trustee sales are buying. They get excited at about 70% of assessed value, so a 30% discount from assessed value, and that would be something like 104,000. Now that's only 30% off, and you're saying 50% off. So somewhere between that number, depending on the neighborhood and the condition of the property, right? Sounds like it's about, right, like a 30 to 50% or 50 to 70% of either ARV or assessed value. So comment on that, if you will, please, because you've done a couple in your neighborhood.
Well, let's comment on how Baltimore treats assessed values.
Yeah.
Baltimore likes to keep its credit rating up, to keep its interest payments down.
Okay.
And so I discovered in doing some tax sale research that after the sales were over, I thought I could go, look at the list of things that hadn't sold. Then you can just walk in over the counter and pay the taxes. You don't have to bid for them. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I looked at some of these, and there were outrageous tax assessments for the value of the property. It might be $150,000, tax bill on a boarded up block, property on a boarded up block. And so the city is not adjusting their tax assessments for reality, because they want to show that number on the books for their credit rating. So you can't really trust what an unoccupied property's tax assessed value is.
Exactly. So, a lot of times, at least, well, I guess it really depends. And thank you for that insight. A lot of times assessed value is far lower than market value.
Right.
In this case, you're saying a lot of times it's way higher than market value.
Yeah. So now I want to make another comment about your property that I overlooked before. And that is, unlike the other properties, except for the one on your block, all the other properties are in uniform single family blocks, but mm-hmm. your property is across the street from row homes. Now they're in pretty good condition. There aren't any mm-hmm. board ups there, and they seem to be well cared for. But across the alley, there's an alley behind your property, and on the other side of that, there's a group of row homes, and several of them that you can see from your backyard are boarded up.
Okay.
So that's a negative that these other comps don't have.
Correct.
Okay. So, what you can pick a reserve number. You can have a starting price. It doesn't have to be an absolute auction. You mm-hmm. can pick a reserve number and start lower.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just for example, the property that I took back from my loan, I started the bidding at $40,000, mm-hmm. and it ended up going for, I think, $85,000.
Okay, wow!
I took it back because it was less than what I wanted to just let it go for.
So it bid up to 85, but you still ended up with it.
Well, I had to buy it at 85.
Oh,
I just was moving money from one pocket to the other.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. All right. So this is amazing. I can't thank you enough, Ed.
You're welcome.
Really phenomenal, really helpful for me in this situation, and hopefully very helpful for other people listening now and in the future. The real kind of stuff, the little mud you get on your boots when you're, going around in your little red galoshes, thinking,
right.
Oh, being a lender is so sexy. Well, sometimes
Well, you asked what I would do, and I would start the auction low.
Yeah.
And have a reserve.
Start low. Like, I'm just gonna pretend like this is you're like, what do you think would actually get it to move and be interested, from an investor standpoint in that neighborhood? I mean, to me, the best case scenario is between like around 100,000. Seems to me like.
Well, let's see. Since you're asking that question, I guess if I thought of ahead, I would have. All right, so let's say.
I'm putting you on the spot, and
that's all right. It's no problem. I think your a superlative rehab in that neighborhood would draw $195,000.
So if it was, if I put in the money to just fix it up and do it up right, you think my ARV would be 195?
Top for that block would be 195, and 175 is probably what a buyer is going to think to be safe. All right, then at a 35% margin, that leaves us at 113,750 minus rehab costs, which I can hardly estimate just looking in the front door.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but let's say 50.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. So I'm at 63,750. That's what I would hope for if I put this on auction, and I would start lower than that.
So you would be hoping to get
63,750. I think that's a reasonable amount. If my numbers are right. Now, the available properties are very scarce, and so it might get bid up beyond that.
Or, I have to think about it, because like, as much as I really don't want it, maybe, at some point it'll just make sense for me to wait a little bit longer and put the 50 grand into it, just to, not take, depending on how big of a, haircut, I really want to take. Right. So, because, if I'll just take it back, and I was, like, you got to wait 60 days, even if I was the winning bidder or had the bid amount nobody else wanted to pay. It's going to take 60 days plus for me to even get on title and to be able to start. But anyway, if I put the 50 in, then I could, if you think 175 is kind of a realistic number, I could, just I was telling Brenda before, I maybe could get a little more if I'm willing to carry. But then I want to go, I would need a pretty big down payment not to have the same thing happen again, where I have to foreclose again, on the same property. So really a lot to chew over. That gives me at least something real. And that's what's the biggest problem in the note business when you're buying stuff that's not in your backyard, which is most of the note business is not in your backyard, unless you're a private lender and you just lend in your own community. But because there's a lot more lending opportunities than discounted note opportunities generally in any one city or locale. But it's getting accurate numbers. And then like people say, I want to go, how did you give me this appraisal? How did it appraise for this? Like I get one appraisal when I'm doing the deal. And then by the time, I've got an REO, a real estate owned property that I've taken, somehow it's significantly lower. And I'm like, gosh, so you can't, the due diligence and getting accurate data is so important. So Ed, you have just done a great service, and so much so that because I'm the note queen, I'm going to have to knight you as a knight of the queendom, and job well done, my good and faithful servant.
Well, let me ask you to send me the information of the auctioneer and the time and day of the auction. And, I might show up if I can clear my schedule and just see what happens.
Wow. Okay. I'll make a note to myself. Then Ed, the time, date, and place.
And who the auctioneer is, so I can get the, what they require.
The auctioneer. Okay. I will. Right. Thank you so much, Ed.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it. And I hope all of you that are listening appreciated that little tutorial. And just like with Brenda, for me, like my whole path into, after I quit my job, my nursing job, it's been very organic, and there was no bullet train to the queendom. I'm telling you, there was no Note Queen University. So basically I've just learned one lesson at a time by willing to just step out, take risk, work towards going towards a vision that I have. Right. So I'm always learning. So you got 10 deals and one of them gives you a headache. Well, that's just part of it. That's part of my education. You're going to pay for your education one way or another. And so anyway, Ed did me a great service. I hope you learned from it. And if you want to just, hang around with people that have been around the block, then can give you a little insight and maybe save you some of the more expensive headaches, education seminars that you'll get if you're willing to take a risk and get in motion and just go. Please consider coming to the summit, like again, propertypapersummit.com, or get some training somewhere. There, if you sign up as a free account on the Note Queen site, I have a links to resources place where I will create links to a lot of the great other vendors and educators out there that will be good, at least a starting place for you. So anyway, thank you so much for the time. I always feel blessed that you take an hour out of your day to spend it here. And just remember to use your powers for good and go out there and create financial solutions just from one mom and pop to another. Thanks again. I will catch you next month. Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Virtual Coffee with Dawn Rickabaugh. For more, please visit notequeen.com.